Today on Joker Watch, I make some much needed progress on the assembly table. So stick around, and welcome to the watch. One thing I wanted to point out is I added cross bracing underneath where the floor is going to go. That's for stability and to keep the floor from sagging. Unfortunately, technology is hard and I didn't hit the record button, so I didn't get that on film.
With that explanation out of the way, I go ahead and move on to cutting the side panels and center dividers for the assembly table. Here I attach the end panels with glue and nails. Later in the video I use pocket screws, and I find the pocket screws are a little bit cleaner and quicker, but it's really 6 one, half a dozen the other. I'm adding leveling feet, and I quickly realized as I was trying to countersink the first one that I don't have the right portion of it. So I abandoned that idea and just drilled a hole and inserted the rest of them. I don't think it really makes a difference, it was more a cosmetic thing, but having leveling feet will make it easier to adjust the height, level it out, and if I ever want to butt it up to a table saw, it'll be able to have the ability to make it level with that table. And the biggest reason I went ahead and added the leveling feet now is so I don't throw out my back when this thing weighs 500 pounds. So go me for thinking ahead. Doesn't happen very often. Now that I got this flipped over in its correct orientation, I can go ahead and start adding the floor, dividers, cabinets, top, all the stuff that makes this an actual functioning assembly table. I will say the nice part here is I measured it out perfectly, so I was able to cut this piece of board and get 2 perfectly sized boards out of it. Let's just cut the second one here.
Missed it by that much.
Well, math ain't my strong suit, so let's get a different board. You may notice that little black grommet. That is for my air compressor. It's going to sit in that little nook, and I have a power outlet underneath that will power my air compressor. That way I have the ability to nail things up at the assembly table. And like I said, there's the little cavity that the air compressor is going to go in, and on each side I will have a bank of drawers accessible from each end of the assembly table. I'm installing a outdoor power outlet into the leg. The reason I'm doing this is I really like the fact that it has a cover that goes over it to keep dust from going in. This was a pretty basic install. You just unplugged the 3 wires, routed it through the leg, and plugged them back in. But if you don't feel comfortable enough doing this, I would seek the advice of an electrician. As you can see, I got some solid core doors from the firehouse. We're renovating our station, and these were just going to get thrown away, and I thought they make great tabletops, so I snagged a few before they made it to the dumpster. They are solid and they are heavy, so we'll see how they work out for a tabletop. I originally was going to do a 1-inch overhang all around the table, but my wife pointed out if I do an 18-inch overhang on this side, that I would have a spot to sit down and do work, which was a good idea. Unfortunately, it wasn't mine, it was hers. I'll give credit where credit is due. It did cause a bit of a issue that I will point out, but it was easy to find the solution to that. So overall, I'm pretty happy with the additional size of the top, and it'll really serve me well down the road. So I currently do not own a track saw. It is something I'm looking into purchasing possibly down the road, but right now I'm going old school with a circular saw and straight edge, and I'm gonna grab this so it doesn't accidentally fall and break anything. So turns out my grip wasn't as strong as I thought. Luckily nothing broke, but it did make a kaboom. This is one of the areas that adding that extra overhang caused me issues. It wasn't as stable as I would have liked with just screwing it in from the bottom, so I had to go back and reinforce it by drilling down and clamping it together. It wasn't a huge issue, but it makes it harder down the road if I want to remove the top. added solid red oak edge banding. I'm making it flush with the bottom, and then I'm going to come back and flush trim the top. That way it's absolutely flat for when I add the top. And I just did a simple butt joint. I could have did miter and made it fancy and act like I knew what I was doing, but I knew I could do this, and I didn't want to ruin it by doing something that's slightly outside of my comfort zone. Once I had the top flush trim, sanded, cleaned, I went ahead and grabbed my contact cement and I started adding that to the top for the laminate that I'm adding. Now, I started with this teeny tiny little roller because that's all I could find, and I didn't feel like making a run to the store. And I had this little tray and I started it and it wasn't working, so I just dumped it directly onto the surface, and that seemed to work decent enough. Then, following the instructions and multiple different YouTube videos, I went ahead and applied the contact cement to the back side of the laminate. Then I let them both dry to the touch. Then once I did that, I did some furring strips. I just used some offcuts from different projects I had. They were nothing special, but just something to keep the two pieces from touching before I wanted them to. Really, this isn't that hard as long as you do the proper setup. But if you see here, adding that additional length onto the tabletop also caused an issue with the laminate because the size that I got was a 4 foot by 8 foot, but I made the tabletop 5 foot by 6 foot, so there was no way to do it in one sheet. But I went ahead and added a T-track down the middle where that seam was, so it looks like it was intentional, but it was most certainly not. After I got the top on, I took this nice little roller thingy and pressed down and really got it properly adhered. That way it does not come back up. And then after that, I went ahead and put a 45-degree chamfer on the side because this laminate is sharp. I actually cut my hand multiple times being an idiot and running it across the tabletop. So this really helped soften the edges so I don't do that again. And here is where I come back and add that T-track, so it makes it look like this was all intentional.
Don't be our little secret. Our secret.
Our dirty little secret.
I appreciate you clicking on the video. If you want to see the conclusion, don't forget to subscribe. Your watch has ended.